Hi, welcome to episode 484 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy Kira on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky. I blog over at the corner of knitandtea.com, where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called the Corner of Knit and Tea, where I sell my handspun, yarn, and knitting patterns. Hi, how are you? I hope that you are doing well. It is Monday, July 22nd, and we just concluded the Tour de Fleece yesterday. Of course, my tour was over the first week of the tour because I had to stop spinning, but I watched the bike race, and now I'm getting excited for the Summer Olympics, which start on Friday. So I'm excited for the opening ceremonies. I'm also on my own this week, which is kind of fun. My husband is off on he is riding the big bike ride across Iowa, RAGBRAI, and so he is gone for the week. I took him up to Iowa on Saturday, and then I will go fetch him this coming Saturday. And so I have the week to myself, which is kind of fun. I mean, I love having him around. He's my favorite person, and it's just the two of us kind of knocking around our house. But I lived by myself for quite a while in my 20s, and so having a week to myself doesn't bother me either. I have, normally I try not to cook, but this time I actually am going to try a few new recipes that I don't think he'd enjoy. And I have big plans for quilting and hopefully stitching and some other crafting. My arm is still bothering me a little bit, so I'm doing a little bit less crafting at this point, which is unfortunate because it does give me a lot of material to talk about when I come talk to you once a week. I will also say that next weekend, let me think about this. Oh, it's not next Monday. Never mind. Never mind. I was going to say I'm going to be gone and I'm going to take a week off, but actually that's August 5th that I will take off. So one more podcast before then. So I hope that you are doing well. Today I am drinking iced tea. I put it in a mug anyway, and this is my World War I museum, or the National World War Museum, which is here in Kansas City, and this was the centennial of the Great War back in 2014 to 2018, the celebration with all the poppies. This is a great museum. It actually, there's an interesting story. Kansas City did a ton of fundraising to put together a museum to honor those whose lives were lost during the Great War, which at that point was the only, world war. And they ended up, because they started fundraising so early, like pretty much almost as the war ended, they ended up opening the first museum honoring those who were lost in the war, and they ended up becoming the National World War I Museum. And there's a huge monument, and of course, unfortunately, we had another war after that, but so they are kind of the nationally recognized World War I museum, and that's right here in Kansas City. Anyway, they have tons of really amazing exhibits, and they have an art installation that is just a field full of poppies. And so when they celebrated the centennial a few years ago, I went and picked up a mug. Anyway, today I'm actually drinking iced tea. I'm drinking from Tea Pig's Cold Brew, their cucumber and apple tea. And this one is obviously a tisane. It doesn't really have any actual tea in it. The ingredients are, hang on, let me find it. Apple, citric acid, white hibiscus, spirulina, cucumber extract, cucumber, and natural flavors. So they are little tea temples. They're little triangular tea bags-ish, and you can put them in your water bottle or in a cup of cold water, and then they just suggest that you let it brew for 6 to 7 minutes, but they've been formulated to actually be cold brew. So I still have my tea temple in here. You can see it a little bit, maybe, no, yeah, you can sort of see it in there. And so that is what I'm drinking today. And it's nice and cool and refreshing. So let's get to the crafting. I don't have a lot to show you. I'll tell you that right now. So I did put in a little bit of, I put in a tiny bit of work on knitting, almost not worth showing you, but I will anyway. I put in maybe about 6 stripes on my hipster tee. This is a pattern by Joji Locatelli. I am using Treasure Goddesses Yak Treasured Toes, which is a superwash merino, yak, and nylon yarn in 2 colorways. The kind of dark burgundy color is called Song of the Sirens, and the lighter colorway is called From the Depths She Rose. The construction on this top is very interesting. It is called the hipster tee because it is sort of a takeoff on her hipster shawl from many years ago, and this is kind of the crossover and meshy pattern created with the stitch pattern that was part of the shawl, and then the striping part is started of the tee. So this is one part of the front, and I have just a little bit further to go, and then I will move to the back, and then the other side in the front, and then eventually they'll be joined in the round. And so I sort of have this complicated configuration. The construction is really interesting. It means that there's not going to be a lot of seaming. There will be some ends to weave in because I kind of pick up and start here, and then move over here, and then move over here, and then join everything in the round. So there will be some extra ends to weave in. But other than that, it should be relatively seamless. So that's kind of nice. My size, I am knitting the 3rd size, which I think is the medium, or the, I have a 38-inch bust, so I'm knitting for whatever that size is, and it calls for approximately 2 skeins of fingering weight yarn and creates this kind of form-fitting tee. It's not, it doesn't have like a ton of negative ease or anything, but it's not supposed to be a big roomy tee. It is a little bit more form-fitting. Anyway, and I am probably going to make a few modifications. I haven't figured out exactly what I'm doing yet. The tee has a very prominent V-neck, and at least the way the model is Joji Locatelli herself, and the way she is wearing it, the V is fairly deep, and I don't think I want mine to be quite as deep. And so I haven't figured out exactly what I'm going to do yet. My row gauge may be a little bit off, which may actually work in my favor. I'm thinking that I'm not actually knitting quite to row gauge, in which case it would take me more rows to be quite as deep. So I might have to add some extra rows, but I don't necessarily have to add, keep the V going that long. And basically my solution to that is if I don't like, if I get too far into the pattern and the measurement gets to a point where I think it's too deep of a V, I may actually abbreviate the V and then just add on a few cast on the remaining stitches that would be added as the V, but cast them on and do it a bit more like a scoop neck. And so that is kind of where I'm going with this. I don't know how quickly I'll really be able to show you anything that looks like a sweater because I am knitting in very, very limited amounts at this point. And so I'm just adding little bits each week as I can. So hopefully I'll finish this by the end of the summer, but I don't know. I'm thinking that maybe, particularly once I get it to a roundy stage, I might be able to just do a little bit of stockinette and maybe finish it by the end of August, I hope, and wear it a little bit, but we'll just have to see. So that's kind of what I'm knitting on. Spinning wise, the Tour de Fleece is over. I will be awarding prizes tomorrow evening. So today is Monday, tomorrow is Tuesday, July 23rd, and after 5 p.m. my time. So if you spun on my team, you have until then to post a photo for me of all of your finished spins. Many of the team members have already done it. Remember, you can post in the Facebook group, you can post in the Ravelry group, or you can post on Instagram using the hashtag TeamCKT2024. I will draw a winner from all of those. I also have had someone else donate a prize, so technically I'll be drawing 2 winners tomorrow, and it will be kind of the grand prize for the tour, and then the other, I'll draw another participation prize from the other one. So I think that kind of covers everything that I need to there. My spinning during the tour, I finished a skein that I had started before the tour, and then I managed to spin 1 skein during the tour, and I managed to finish it and pull it off the wheel. So this is the skein that I spun during the tour. This is the bits and bobs that I talked about during the tour. It's hard to, it's not showing you all the different colors. So this skein is somewhat in a color family. Basically what happened was I went through all of the bits and bobs I had, and I pulled out anything that was in the purple or jewel toned family. So I had bits and bobs that were purples and blues, and then some of them even had some mauves, and one of them even had a little bit of gold in there, but it was all kind of jewel toned things. And then I had one with like just a little bit, excuse me, of neon pink, but it was all kind of purples it had some kind of purple in it. And then for the second ply, so that was one ply, and then for the second ply, I had a couple different things. I had some lavenders and grays, some real pale lavenders and some real pale grays. And then I had, for those of you who have been with me for a while, I haven't shown you the yarn in a while, but I am spinning yarn for my own chicken for the City Girl Farm. I get to make my own chicken, and I really haven't worked on that in months now because my arm has been bothering me, and that in particular is harder to knit with. But in that yarn, in that chicken, what I am doing is I am holding a mill spun yarn. It's kind of a small breed batch yarn, but I'm holding kind of an oatmeal colored mill spun yarn, and I'm striping it with my hand spun. And there are portions of the fiber that I'm using to spin my hand spun that are very, very light. They're either kind of almost undyed, or they're very pale gray, or very pale lavender, or very pale blue. So they look just ever so slightly tinted. And I have been pulling those bits of fiber out of the braid because the problem is that when up against the oatmeal, there's no contrast. It just looks like there's nothing there. And what I really wanted is I really wanted the striping pattern. I will bring those tomorrow. I'll bring them next time, maybe to show you, or when I get back into it, I'll bring them back to show. But so basically I had one ply that was like dark, all jewel tones and had purple in it. And then I had one ply that was all light and very lightly kind of lavender, gray, pale blue, those kinds of things. And so that is how I got my marled skein. And this skein is about 4.5 ounces. And my guess is it's probably about 400 yards if I had to guess. It might be 350-ish, but it's my general, which is about a sport weight yarn, sport weight to DK, and it still needs a bath, but that is kind of the sum total of what I did during the tour. I did this during the first week. This is probably how I hurt my arm, because I was going to spin 15 minutes a day, and what I ended up doing was spinning as long as I wanted, and it didn't hurt, and so I ended up spinning like 1 to 2 hours a day, and that was not good. So that is kind of where I'm at with this. I did not finish the bits and bobs. I did not even get into any of the other braids that I wanted to tackle. So I don't know if that will be next year's tour or what will happen. I'm thinking about putting spinning on a little bit of a hiatus right now. I enjoy spinning, but the pinching muscles as I'm drafting the fiber and the wrist movements as I'm knitting seem to affect kind of the same muscles and aggravate the same muscles. And if I have to choose between the two, I would rather sit and knit right now. So I think spinning is probably going to be a little sparse in the next couple months. And I hope that I will get back to a point where I can do all the things that I want to do. But that is probably where I'm at. So this is much less than I have spun most tours, but I will take it and hope that next year will be better. So for those of you who have participated, thank you so much for participating on the team. It's super fun. And I hope we'll do it all again next year. So finally, the last thing that I worked on some this week, and I did make progress on this week, is I worked on my stitching sampler. And this is a lavender sampler. It's a PDF pattern that I got off of Etsy. And then I am using the colors that I have in my stash. And this week, I know I added this one, and I added this one on Saturday. And I think I added a few of the other things. I'm really not pleased with this flower down here. I have to tell you, it's like round, and I don't know why precisely it's round or what flower that's supposed to be. And I added some of the highlights and the French knots this weekend to see if I could make it look any better, and I'm really not pleased with it. So I'm probably going to pull that out. But my plan is hopefully to finish this week. I mean, I still have quite a few bits and pieces, but I think I'm going to make this my focus project this week. I plan to do some quilting this week while my husband is gone, and providing that that doesn't hurt my arm. But stitching is the one thing that seems to be pretty much fine. So my plan is to maybe finish this one this week, and then I don't know what I'll do. I have another kit, or I could start something from another pattern because I have a couple more patterns. I don't know where I'm going to go with this. The other thing that I talked about is that I might try and embark on a bigger project that maybe I'll turn into a quilt when I'm done with it. And so I haven't really decided exactly what I want to do there. So that is this one, and you can see the colors better against the black. I think it's going to be really pretty when I finish it. I've been doing a lot of contrast against white, but I think the really light colors against the black fabric are going to be really nice. So that is, hopefully I'll have that finished to show you next week. And my hope is also I will have some quilting things to show you next week. You can see I have the current quilt behind me. I am simultaneously working on quilting and unquilting. I'm still working on ripping out those lines, and I'm quilting the other half of the quilt, and now I have ripped out the lines on the bottom corner of the quilt, so I have like maybe 3/4 of the quilt ready to be quilted, and then I still have like 1/4 of the quilt that I still need to rip out the stitching. Pro tip, don't mess up on quilting, because ripping out the actual quilting with the 3 layers is really not that pleasant. I have the sandwich layer of the backing, and then the batting, and then the top of the quilt, and what is probably making it the most unpleasant of all is that I use an adhesive spray, a slightly adhesive spray to, and it washes off. I use a slightly adhesive spray to attach the top and the back to the batting. So I just spray it a little bit and I lay the fabric down and I kind of pat it out, and I can pull it apart. It reminds me a little bit of like rubber cementer. I mean, it's just a really light adhesive to keep the fabric from moving too much while you're quilting. It keeps it from slipping and sliding, and I mean, I can pull it apart and then lay it down and reattach it. It's also like that like spray adhesive you would use like on poster board or stuff like that, where you can pick things up and reposition them. But the problem is that as I'm picking out all the stitching, I'm trying to pull the layers apart, and of course it's really sticky in there, and so my hands get all sticky, and it's really not very fun. So pro tip, don't be sure of your quilting plan before you start so that you don't have to pull it out. And also, like, if you really don't like it after the first line or two, just stop, because yeah. So I have like 5 lines, 5 or 6 big long lines that go all the way through the quilt that I have to pull out. Anyway, so those are my projects for this week, and if I finish that quilt, which I'm really hoping I will, I'm hoping I'll finish quilting it in the next couple days and then be able to, I already have most of the binding done, because last time when I have another quilt that looks almost, I've explained this to you before, I did 2 baby quilts kind of out of the same fabric and the same backing and the same binding. My binding strip is already pretty much ready to go, I think. I might have to add like 1 more small length to it to get it all the way around the quilt. But my binding is already ready to go. So all I need to do is finish quilting this beast, trim it down, and then I can add the binding to it, and it will be done, and they will be ready to donate. And then I also have another quilt that I had started that I stopped when I went to do the baby quilts. And my hope is that maybe if I finish this quilt soon enough this week, I can get back into that one a little bit. And then I can bring you some of what I have done and show you where I'm at with that. So my hope is I'll have some quilting and stitching this week, maybe a little bit of knitting if I can crank it out, but we'll just have to see how that goes. And then Olympics on Friday, and then on Saturday I have to spend most of the day driving up to Iowa. Although I will say that on the way to Iowa this weekend, I made my husband, so I had to take, my husband does this bike race across Iowa, and the deal is usually he goes with a whole team of riders, and so they take a minivan or some kind of big vehicle so they can put all their like tents and clothes and bags and stuff in the vehicle, and then they ride all day, and they split the driving of the vehicle because basically they're riding from west to east in Iowa, so over the course of 7 or 8 days. And so what they're doing is the van is following them from town to town to town, because every night they camp, and so they get all their stuff. So what happens is they divide the days into like half days, and so somebody like drives for half a day and then gets to ride for several more days and then drives for half a day, you know. And if there are 7 or 8 of them, it's no big deal, because everybody drives basically like 2 shifts and doesn't have to spend that much time not riding. This year, everyone kind of dropped out of the team for various reasons. They had conflicts, they didn't want to go. This year's course is supposed to be like the hilliest ever. And so there were only 2 of them. And of course, do the math. If there are 2 people with 2 bikes and a car, somebody always has to be driving the car, and so they never get to ride together. So they made alternate arrangements for their luggage this year. They're basically going to be on somebody else's. They were able to sort of get into the so the way the ride works is they also have kind of the ride sponsored vehicle, which I'm picturing is just like a huge like U-Haul or rented van, and you can put, if you want, you can put your tent and your duffel bag in there every morning, and then you can go ride, and then it will go to the next town, and then you can meet the truck there and pull your stuff off of it. And so this year, for the first time ever, my husband and his friend are doing that. But the problem is that they are starting on the west side of the state. They are starting on the west, ending on the east side of the state, and if they drive a car to the west, then they would have no way to have the car like get them. So so basically, we drove up to the west side of the state, and I made my husband drive up so that I could stitch and knit a little bit in the back seat, and then I had to drive home. And then this coming Saturday, I have to drive up to the east side and go get him, and then we'll see. I would like to make him drive home so I can have a little bit of crafting time, but we'll see, because after 7 or 8 days of bike riding all day, every day, and camping in a tent every night, I suspect he may be a little tired, and I'm not going to make him drive home if I think he's too tired to drive home. So we'll see. So that is my plan, and I will get with you next Monday, which will be July 29th, and we will chat a little bit more, and hopefully I will have a few things to show you. So I hope you have a lovely week ahead. I hope that you are staying healthy, because I know things are going around again, summer viruses and whatnot. I hope you are staying healthy. I hope you are finding some time to craft. I hope it is not too hot where you are, that the climate is temperate and seasonable, or you have access to air conditioning, and I wish you a wonderful week ahead. I will say, as I always do, happy spinning, happy knitting, happy quilting, embroidering, pretty much any craft you can think of. Happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye.